Honestly, making a stuffed baked potato is my favorite way to clean out my refrigerator. Potatoes are so versatile and they can go with pretty much any flavor. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make a Tex Mex style stuffed potato, which utilizes some pulled pork, pepper jack cheese, broccoli, mushrooms, and a ton of other vegetables that would have gone bad if I didn't use them in this recipe. Follow along if you too want to make my favorite recipe to reduce food waste. Now let's begin! Now the first ingredient to this recipe is, you guessed it, a potato. So for this, after washing off my potato, I like to place it in some aluminum foil and puncture a couple holes. I like to puncture some holes just so the potato steams a bit before seasoning it a little bit. Personally, I just used what I had on hand, which I used some garlic powder, some thyme, but like I said, the hallmark of this recipe is you're just using what you have available. Also, make sure to add a little bit oil to your potato at this step too so the seasoning sticks on. Wrap your potato in the aluminum foil and bake it at 425 degrees for about 60 minutes to 75 minutes. I personally like my potatoes to be really soft. Of course, this is my preferred method, but if you are short on time, please feel free to use your microwave. Cook your potato without the aluminum foil, of course, and cook it for about 8 minutes on high, making sure to flip it halfway through. After about 60 minutes in the oven, I started prepping my vegetables that I'm going to cook. Now, I do use a lot of different vegetables in this recipe, but there only are a certain number that I actually like. Sauteed in a pan, which were my mushrooms and my broccoli. Prep those and cut them into bite-sized pieces before adding my broccoli to a medium-high pan. If you're using different vegetables, you should basically kind of know the cooking time, but for the broccoli, I still wanted it to be kind of tender, so I sauteed it for about 3 to 4 minutes before adding my mushrooms. While my broccoli was sauteing, I actually cut up some ribs to get my quote-unquote pulled pork. This was just leftovers from what I had from a barbecue, so I just sliced it into bite-sized pieces. This recipe works great with barbecue brisket or some pulled chicken, but even if you aren't a meat eater, because there are so many fantastic vegetables that you can add to this recipe, you really don't need meat at all. Like for example, in this recipe, I added mushrooms, which add a really nice meaty umami flavor. You can also use things like eggplants, zucchini, and those add really good flavor as well. I added my mushrooms into my broccoli, and then I let those cook down and saute for about 2 to 3 minutes. In this step, I also added my seasonings. I used some garlic powder, some chili powder, and some thyme, and some Cajun seasoning. At first, I was thinking that I would go with kind of a Cajun-y route, but as I started cooking and adding more ingredients, I eventually changed my mind and made it more Tex Mex. Hence, I added a little bit more chili powder, which adds a wonderful smoky flavor. After cooking my veggies down a bit, I then added my pulled pork. Of course, if you aren't using meat, you can of course skip this step. Because my pan was already pretty hot, this didn't really take more than 2-ish minutes, where I covered my mixture with a lid and then I removed it from heat. Now, after about 75 minutes in the oven, it's time for me to return back to my potato. I put it in this mini cast iron just for the aesthetics, but you can just keep it on a sheet pan. So you're going to want to remove your potato. As you can see, it's very, very nice and steamy. And then you're going to want to cut it in half. After cutting it in half, you want to kind of pinch the sides. It was really hot, so maybe be better than I was and use like a fork or something. So you're going to pinch down the sides, and then you're going to scrape the potato until the flesh of the potato is evenly distributed within the skin. Then it was time for me to add my cheese. To the bottom of my potato, I added about a half slice of pepper jack cheese. I know some people are against pre-made sliced cheeses, so if you are one of those people, don't use it, but for me personally, I don't mind it that much. I simply crumbled half my slice of pepper jack cheese to the bottom of my potato, making sure to spread it a little bit evenly. On top of my cheese, I then just added my meat vegetable mixture before adding the second half of my pepper jack cheese to the top of the potato. I simply just placed this back into my oven for about 5 minutes or until my cheese was completely melted. Or if you're not using cheese, you can simply just omit this step. While that was in the oven, I just prepped my other veggies. Like I said, just use whatever you have on hand. For me, I just chopped up some green onions, some cilantro that was about to go bad because I can almost never find a way to use up all the cilantro, some tomatoes, and some lettuce. Also, because I was going with the more Tex Mex theme, I actually used some salsa as well. This is like a spicy jalapeno salsa that I get from a restaurant in Chicago. It is so good. And it's probably my favorite part. It was assembly time. So I just removed my potato from the oven. Be very careful because it's especially if you put it in a cast iron pan like me. And then I just added my lettuce, tomatoes, cilantro, and green onions, making sure to drizzle the salsa so it looks a little fancy. And then guess what? It was time for me to serve. As you can see, this recipe can be truly whatever you want it to be. It's so customizable for whatever you have on hand and really any diet needs. This recipe packs so much flavor, and when I say it has layers, each separate bite is its own unique experience. This is one of my favorite recipes to lean back on, and I hope you enjoyed this video and found some more delicious ways to clean out your refrigerator. Have a wonderful day no matter your situation or location. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Goodbye!